Do you feel like no matter how many games of Star Wars Unlimited you play, you're just not getting better? Or maybe you're plateauing in your skill and you're looking for new ways to improve? What's up, guys? KTOD Maddie here, hitting you with my take on practice. I think people could be practicing more and practicing more focused and more meaningfully, and you can make drastic improvements quick if you follow these guidelines that I'm about to set forth for you. So, a lot of you might be saying, "What do you mean, Maddie? I play tons of games of Star Wars Unlimited. I'm always practicing. I'm playing best of ones. I'm playing best of threes. I'm going to locals. I'm doing all these things. I'm practicing. What do you mean?" Well, if you're playing Star Wars Unlimited, that is one way to practice, but it's not the only way to practice. It's not the most effective way to practice. There are really three key areas that you should be focusing on in your practice. One, your technical, right? Your technical aspects of Star Wars Unlimited. What is that? That is one, your mechanics. That is kind of physically how you play the game. And there's some things that you need to practice in there to make sure, especially at tournaments, you are maintaining a clean board state. You are physically used to manipulating the cards. Then there is the aspects of gameplay and simulating tournament play, right? Technical, playing the game, put it on the felt. Then there is analytical. That is going back and reviewing your gameplay, watching. There's tournaments and people are streaming them, right? I think at Gen Con somebody streamed them. Some of these 1Ks people are streaming physical games. Go back and watch those. Pause them at certain scenarios. Ask yourself what you do. That's analytical. It's reviewing yourself and also reviewing other games. There's more to that, and I'll get into it in that section. There's other ways you can practice the analytical side of Star Wars Unlimited. And then there's theoretical. And sometimes people are spending too much time on this, and they're not actually playing the games. They're sitting on a deck list, and they're swapping cards around, but they're not actually playing. You have to theorize, and then you have to, try it out, right? It's like a science experiment. But that is part of the game you need to practice. You need to practice the theoretical side of the game. In theory, I think that this card is broken. I need to go and practice it. But you need to be thinking about the game as well. It's also an effective way to practice when you don't have a lot of time between watching VODs of yourself or other people, right? Bring a recording, set up to, your local night or play testing with friends. But also watching, VODs, and then thinking about the game, thinking about different sideboard cards you want to try or how matchups play. Okay, I'm doing this boring task or I'm on the train. What's a matchup I'm having trouble with? What's like the best start that they have or the most common start that they have? What deck am I playing and how can I give myself the best tools to beat them? And then you go practice it. But having that time to use the theoretical side is also important. I'm going to get into that more. So there are these three main areas that I'm going to identify that you could be using more. And as you see me explain them, you're going to realize you're probably not, and I know I'm not, and I need to work on this too, which is why I'm making the video. I'm not top down. We're all together, right? I need to do this as well. But there are these other ways you can practice the game that you're not doing, and you can be, and you're going to find that when you try some of these out and you start to build, a practice repertoire, you're going to improve very quickly because you're not just banging your head against the wall doing one thing. So those are three, and we'll get into them. All right, so the technical aspect of the game, the first thing I'm going to start with are the mechanics of just playing the card game. What does that mean? How am I going to physically have my cards in front of me? Do I have a deck right here? Nice. And I can't, demonstrate this because I'm not going to change camera. This is the Maddie personal channel. We're trying to make it easy. But how do I manipulate the cards to maintain a clean board state, right? That can just be drawing a hand, practice placing your cards down. It sounds corny, but at Gen Con and at these bigger events, even at the top tables, I saw some sloppy play, and I had to catch myself when I was being a little sloppy. Because if you do not maintain a clean board state, especially as we get into the higher tournaments here with PQ season coming up, you can get game losses, or you can have a situation happen where you and your opponent could get warnings, or worse, because things aren't very clear. So how do I maintain a clean board state between how do I put my resources down, how do I draw my cards, what token am I going to use to put on top of my hand when I put it down, where is that going to go? being mindful of my space, my tokens, all those things, the more and you don't have to practice this a lot, but the more reps you get at this, the more comfortable you're going to feel. And you don't have to just sit in your room. You can, watch Netflix and practice that, but you can also do it at locals. Locals is a perfect time to practice like it's a tournament, not in terms of like being a hardo against your buddy who's playing a starter deck, but in terms of maintaining a clean board state. The next one is your turn cadence. I think this is something that's going to be very important, and I'm going to talk about this topic in other videos, but if you have a turn cadence, do the same things every time, you're going to build a little routine that you can always fall back on. And this is going to be important in stressful situations when you're feeling the pressure of a situation to win it in, or your first tournament. You're going to be able to do this thing every turn, and it's going to clear your mind. So what I do, especially in the turns that go later, I draw my cards, I put my hand down, I think for a second, I might pick up my resources and place them when I go to resource. I place them the same way. In the later turns, especially with smuggle, I take a quick second to look at them. But as you build how you want your turn order to go, draw, resource, put your hand down, whatever. If you do it the same way every time, you're actually going to be faster. So you can still look at your hand, look at your resources for smuggle, do all those things, but it's not going to take you forever. Whereas if you don't do it the same way every time, you're going to be like, oh, now I have to look at my resources mid-turn or something like that. So build a turn cadence with how you're comfortable. Draw, resource, untap, all that stuff. Figure out the way that works best for you and nail that down. So when you're in a stressful situation, you look at your cards. That might be the time you go, okay, let me look at my cards, survey the board, think about what I want to do it. I golf a lot, and I'll talk about that in other videos, but there's a thing called a pre-shot routine where you kind of approach every shot the same way. That way, if you're in a golf match or just trying to beat your best score, you're not going to feel the pressure because you've kind of built this in. Okay, I'm going to, think about what club I need. I'm going to visualize the shot. I'm going to think about a feel. I'm going to approach the ball and I'm going to hit, something like that. So that's your turn cadence. That's all part of the mechanical aspects of the game. Don't need to spend a ton of time, but get comfy with them. For people like us, me and the boys who've been playing card games forever, we practice it less, but we should still go back and tune that. One example is in a recent playtesting video, the way I was doing my resourcing, I actually flashed a resource to Mike and gave him more information than I should have. So that's something I have to go back and work on myself. So again, this is like stuff we all need to do. I do these videos when they pop up for me, and I hope that they also hit for other people, right? Okay, so that's mechanical. Still in the area of technical is playing the game. You do have to play the game, but I think people are just playing way too much and not very focused. So you can play, there's two ways to do it. One, simulate tournament gameplay. What is that? That is timed rounds. That is, playing as many rounds in a row against different people with the parameters of a real tournament. You can do that at locals. You can get some buddies together and do a mock tournament, right, when you get closer to PQ season. But then there is, simulating gameplay. So one popular matchup that I think is going to come up is Kira Blue Han. You're going to want to play a bunch of game ones, sure, against that, but then you're going to want to play a bunch of post board, and you're going to want to understand that matchup, and then we'll go into the analytical. But you're also going to want to play like best of threes, just like something's on the line, whether it's like, hey, you got to go, pick up the pizza we order, or you got to buy, the round of drinks or whatever it is. But putting something on the line and playing a best of three that means something will simulate tournament play in that way as well. So we have playing the game, can be playing best of ones, simulating tournament, and then playing meaningful best of threes. And then also playing post-border games are really important as well. So that's technical. I think a lot of people are just playing games, but if you see the differentiation of practicing the mechanical stuff, of playing the game differently, simulating tournaments, and also understanding post-board situations. Because post-board's probably honestly, if you had to pick one between game ones and post-board, you should just only play, like, if you had to pick between the two, I would just play post-board, because that's where most of your games are going to be, and that's where the nuances of the different matchups come into play. In Mike's run at Gen Con, he lost a ton of game ones, and he came in 5th, and he almost won the tournament. So post-board, super important. Okay, that is technical. I think I covered it. Booyah. probably the most important, especially if you want to get better, analytical. Going back and reviewing your games, the games of friends, the games of other players at tournaments that you can get, that information, especially if you can see their hand, you can pause the game at different scenarios and say, what would you do? Or even if you can't, you can, say, if I had this hand, I would, do this. You can pause the game and do like a mental test. Um, what that does is it gets you to think beyond just playing. Like when you're in the game, you're focused in, you don't want to lose, you have the physical parameters of the game, all these things. But when you take a step back and review your own gameplay, you can see where you messed up, right? You can see where your decisions didn't line up, or maybe you forgot a trigger or something like that, right? There's two ways to do it: decision making and your triggers. Um, which we could probably have talked about that more in mechanical of like, you know, find a way to remember your triggers or something. But going back, watch your own play for your decision mistakes or your technical mistakes. But then, a lot of people tell me that they don't have a lot of time, right? I'm a father, and I also like have, a full-time job, and I do content creation, right? I don't always have the most time. But what I can do, and I'm lucky enough that we record our gameplays, I can go back and look at those games that I play, um, and see where I might have goofed, right? Or go watch, recorded 1K and see how I would have done things differently. So it's like the best way to do it is to review your own stuff, but in lieu of that, going and reviewing someone else's stuff and familiarizing yourself with these things, because you can't always you can't always see it in the moment. So coming back and taking that all in is really important to your growth as a player. I think this is the most important part, is the analytical stuff. And so beyond that, two exercises that I practice, and when I first started playing the game I did a ton, was mulliganing and resourcing decisions. So I'm going to put this in analytical, and this is something you can practice, especially if you're picking up a new deck, either if you built it or on a deck builder. Simulate a hand and go through and look at an opening hand, pick a deck you would play against, in a common matchup, and pick what cards you would resource, or what you would, if you'd keep or mulligan, and get those things down. There's a lot of people that ask about opening hands in the Discord or in our gameplay decision, in our gameplay videos, ask about that kind of stuff. Just go practice it. It's something that you can do pretty easily, and you can really get the reps in, and then, screen cap the deck builder, or take a picture of the hand and bring it to other people and ask what they would do. That's a really quick way to, you can get that information fast, and you can learn the whys of their decision making and really improve there. So again, that's not just VOD review, but that's also mulliganing and resourcing decisions. Once you hammer those in and learn kind of the whys, and especially in terms of different matchups, I think that's another way to really improve your gameplay. All right, and so the last one, and I've talked about this in the opening, is is theoretical. I think some people live too much in theory land, and they don't actually play the game, and they just think about things and either live in kind of like a magical Christmas land world where their scenario is always the best and their opponent's isn't. That's a trap you can fall into with this, so you need to be mindful of it, and that's why I bring it up. But theory, thinking about the game outside of the game, is very important to your growth as a player. Thinking about a current meta and the best way to attack it, or, thinking about a matchup and what's really giving you trouble. So you can start to think of what kind of cards you could try again, and then you go to your technical practice and you play post-boarded games, or you change your main deck because you think a certain deck is going to be popular in the meta. Or maybe, with deck selection, you're like, oh man, this is I think that given what's going on in the tournament atmosphere and the popularity of a certain deck, I should play this deck, and then, go and practice it. But thinking about the game outside of the game and not playing is something that you need to spend time with, and you will get better. It's just making sure that you check that against actually playing, actually practicing, your resources and decisions, playing post-boarded games, simulating tournament gameplay, and making sure you maintain a clean board state and all that stuff. So theory, very important. You got to live in the real world too, but if you think about the game more, you will find yourself more in tune and able to capitalize on different metagames or short matchups that you've had trouble with and stuff like that. So it is very important. All right, so after seeing this video, you now know that you can go and practice your mulligans and resourcing decisions. You can record gameplays or watch tournament VODs. You can, chat with friends about the game at large, and then go ahead and practice those theory-based decisions, or test your theories. I promise you, if you start to add these things to your gameplay, you will improve. It's tough to find time, and so that's why I tried to provide some quick hacks of maybe you can't record every game you play, so watch other ones. Think about the game, on the train or when you're mowing the lawn, and then when you spent all that time thinking, so you have a clear idea, and then you go play a few games and practice it out, right? Versus having to play 1,000 games, because there are a lot of people who play a lot of Star Wars Unlimited, but I think that they lack doing these other things and they don't improve as much. I know that when I first started playing, I was just grinding it out, and I felt like I plateaued. And then I started, doing the mulligan thing, where I'd go and practice mulligans and start thinking about the game more. And I found that I started to get better pretty quickly. So I think that'll work for you. I know this is a new channel, but a lot of you guys are not subscribed that are watching these. So please, if you like what you're seeing, subscribe. That lets me make more of these. I love doing the side channel. I get to pump out more content. I get to kind of let my hair down and show off my books, and just kind of chat at the camera, which is fun. So hit the bell, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let me know what you want to see. I'm really taking those comments at heart and the feedback I get to generate what this channel is going to be. People seem to like these types of videos. I like talking about this topic. I think that there's a lot of information I can give that you guys can come back to and watch these again, and they're not just a snapshot of the game in a certain month. You can really rewatch these and kind of relearn the lessons or get new nuggets, because I know that's how I like to learn, is to rewatch more of these evergreen videos. So that's what I wanted to make sure was more in the community. So let me know, and if you got any book recs, hit me with them. All right, till next time, guys.